For almost a decade, Disney and Pixar worked together to produce a number of the first CG animated feature films in history. It was a fortuitous period for the two companies, seeing the release of 6 films, each a critical and commercial success. By 2000, Pixar had moved into an enormous lot in Emeryville, California, and cemented themselves as a powerhouse animation studio. By the mid-2000s, Disney's contract to distribute and co-produce a total of 7 Pixar films was coming to an end, and the tumultuous relationship between Steve Jobs and Michael Eisner, Pixar and Disney's respective CEOs, was putting a possible renewal on edge. Looking for another distribution partner, Pixar publicly began talks with other studios, as those with Disney had broken down. With Eisner's resignation from Disney in 2005, Jobs became receptive to further reparative discussions with the studio's newly appointed CEO, Bob Iger. However, not only did Iger set out to restore the distribution arrangement, but made swift moves to entirely acquire the company. Given that Pixar's films at this stage were outperforming Disney Animation's in-house productions, it was clear that the 80-year-old Disney needed the infant studio Pixar more than Pixar needed them. In 2006, Disney announced its acquisition of Pixar in a $7.4 billion deal. As part of the deal, Lasseter and partner Ed Catmull not only retained their executive roles at Pixar, but assumed leadership at Walt Disney Animation as well. Despite being the final film produced independently by Pixar, 2006's Cars became the first to be released under Disney ownership, and thus the first under the Disney Pixar banner, kicking off one of the studio's brightest and most beloved periods, spanning 2006's Cars and 2010's Toy Story 3, a stretch of films many believe to be Pixar's greatest ever. The period saw the studio rake in $3.5 billion at the worldwide box office and collect an accumulative 6 Academy Awards and a further 18 nominations, with Toy Story 3 and Up becoming 2 of only 3 animated films to ever be nominated for Best Picture, the former of which additionally became the first animated film to ever cross $1 billion at the box office. The period also saw further development of the CG animated art form, including the refinement of digital cinematography techniques, such as artificial lighting and depth of field, while employing more filmic frame compositions, aspect ratios, and film editing styles. In this video, I aim to rank all 6 films from what I'm dubbing the golden age of Pixar animation, in order of my own personal preference. At that, let's get into it. Kicking us off at number 5, Cars. It's a Pixar flick that I feel doesn't get the respect that it deserves, though one that I can absolutely see the faults in. It's a movie I've had an enormous love for since it was released. It's got that classic Pixar heart and tells a true underdog story with a character undergoing a sincerely human arc. The problem within, however, is that while highly original in its artistic elements, it's highly derivative narratively. Sure, I've previously praised A Bug's Life for being so, but 11 years into their tenure, having broken ground with each previous film, Pixar seemed to have put on the brakes instead of continuing to power ahead. The film is full of cliches, predictabilities, and some pretty off-brand generic cartoon comedy. However, I still have a lot of respect for it. It's one of the flashiest and most vibrant Pixar films with exhilarating sequences. Its classic Americana elements and American Midwest setting are extraordinarily fun and appealing. While it's hard to connect with characters who are literal cars, I still love them and believe them to be some of Pixar's best and most iconic. While derivative, it's a story that never fails to make me smile. 4. WALL-E. Marking another leap for the animated art form, Pixar delivered the most cinematic CG animation created to that point. Breaking ground with artificial lens technologies to imitate live-action film brought a whole new sense of depth to the art form, visually and emotionally. With a lead character that is practically mute with no facial features, making the first 20-odd minutes essentially a silent film, WALL-E relies heavily on character animation and sound design to relay expression and and tell its story. With a slight tilt of the body, a minor lift of an eye, and elongated digital groan, we're able to connect with this robot on a deeply human level. It's this infused humanity that makes even the film's love story between two robots so believable and emotionally engaging. Almost more than any other, it's an enormous testament to the artistic mastery of Pixar. While the movie has a pretty on-the-nose message about conservation and consumerism, it does it in such a tender way that it never feels overly preachy. It's something that most kids will miss and adults will adore. With tender, moving moments, an enormous dose of heart, and epic action-adventure sequences with explosive colours, WALL-E is an absolute pleasure. 3. Ratatouille. For years, I've believed Ratatouille is nowhere near as good as folks keep saying, but after my recent rewatch, honestly the first since it actually came out, I owe everyone a sincere apology. No idea why it never connected with me at first, but upon revisiting, I've come to find one of the sweetest, most tender, most emotionally engaging Pixar flicks. Every element in this movie works so well. The characters, the voice cast, the setting, and that stunning score by Maestro Michael Giacchino. Without a doubt, one of the greatest of the last decade, beautifully blending the heart of the film with the sounds of the City of Love, delivering music that is as tasty as the film itself. At the heart of Ratatouille is the ultimate story of a small guy achieving big things. It's essentially everything Cars tried to be, but on a smaller scale, and as a result is more meaningful, emotional, and relatable. It's one of the most whimsically enchanting Pixar's, and its masterful mix of human story, disbelief suspension, love tale, and almost out-of-place supernatural elements that work so much better than they have any right to is near perfection. 2. Up. An absolute masterclass in emotional storytelling, opening with an incredible montage sequence that is almost impossible to escape with dry eyes. The film touches on some pretty deep and dark themes: loneliness, isolation, grief, and regret, with our lead character coming to terms with the end of a long life chapter and finding peace, acceptance, and closure in his unlikely friendship with a young boy at the beginning of his own. The opposing worldviews of the two characters, one bitter and one optimistic, create such a beautiful narrative juxtaposition and help tell an incredibly mature and poignant story. Through the heavy emotion, it's also loaded with impeccable humour, much of it darker in nature than most Pixar fare, fantastically layered characters, and tremendously exciting and visually booming adventure sequences. It's all combined incredibly well, making for a film that is one of the most perfectly executed tales of humanity ever put on the screen. The animation is stunning as well, with bright and prosperous colours that keep the film lively, engaging, and optimistic, even in its darkest, most somber moments, exemplifying a silver lining and enforcing the idea that everything will be okay at every single step of the way. And coming in as my number one film of the golden age of Pixar animation, Toy Story 3. Coming 11 years after the second, allowing them to workshop the perfect return, Pixar once more exemplified their painstaking commitment to perfectly crafted storytelling. The resulting movie takes us on a journey that skirts comedy and tragedy, one that is as equally hilarious and heartwarming as it is tear-jerking and heart-wrenching. The movie takes our characters on their biggest adventure yet, and offers up some of the most ambitious and exhilarating moments in the series. The daycare escape, pulling inspiration from cinema's greatest Prison Break films, and that emotionally destroying incinerator scene, which I simply cannot even talk about, are cinema at its finest. The film not only treats our original characters with the respect they deserved after so long, but beautifully introduces new ones too, just as the second did. Some of the film's greatest moments come by way of Barbie and Ken, who are absolute scene stealers. As I had grown with the Toy Story films from the age of 4, Toy Story 3 not only acted as a swan song for this beautiful trilogy, closing out Andy's 3-movie arc, but also reflected the closing of my own personal life arc. As Andy was heading off to college, so was I. This incredibly meaningful movie told me it's okay to move on and embrace the future, and who better to send me off on that journey than my lifelong best pals, Woody and Buzz. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to check out my other Disney and Pixar animation ranking videos. I've ranked the entire Walt Disney animation canon and am currently working on the Pixar canon. So make sure to hit that subscribe button and bell icon to catch the rest of this series. And at that, it's over to you. Which Golden Age Pixar films do you love the most, and which ones do you love not so much? Throw away in the comments below with your own personal thoughts and rankings, but as always, remember to stay civil. To infinity and beyond. Hey everyone, if you haven't yet, smash that big old subscribe button up on your screen to keep up to date with all my content, and hit that like button down below. Also, don't forget to check me out on social media, and please consider supporting me over on Patreon for as little as $1 a month for exclusive videos, early access content, and to get your name up on the screen. Thanks again for watching.